Okay, Algebra 2 students, in this video today, we will be looking at exponents, okay? So in today's video, we will be looking at exponents. Your heading for today is, if I can get my pen to work here, hold on one second, there we go. Your heading for today is exponents. Please copy that in your notes. And the lesson number is 1.2. Please write that in your notes and also put the date. Always include today's date so that your notes are organized, okay? All right, let's go ahead and get started. Now, first of all, I want to start off by looking at some terms, okay? So go ahead and get your pencils out or pens, whatever you're taking notes with, and I want you to really listen to me and take some great notes, okay? Copy this down if you would, please. A 4 with a little 6 up here. Please copy that in your notes. Now, this entire expression altogether is called an exponential expression, okay? Now, I'm going to go kind of fast, but you can pause the video whenever you need to and get caught up, okay? So this is called an exponential expression, and make note of that in your notes. This entire thing is called an exponential expression. Now, this 4 right here is called the base. Please make note of that in your notes. You must know that. When I'm talking about a certain expression and I say, look at the base, you have to know what I'm talking about. This number right here is called the base, okay? Now this number right here is called the exponent. Now probably most of this, if not all of this, is review. But I still want you to take notes on this and write this all down. This entire expression together is called an exponential expression. This number right here, the big number, is called the base, and this little number up here in the air is called the exponent. Now, copy this in your notes. I'm sure you know this by now, but please copy this in your notes. 4 to the 6th power does not mean 4 times 6, okay? It means to write the 4 6 times. And why 6 times? Because there's a 6 right here. Why a 4? Because there's a 4 right here. Write the 4 6 times and you multiply them all together. Now, we're not going to solve that right now, but understand what that means. Please copy that in your notes, okay? Now, I want to mention something else. It's going to be a little confusing. In fact, actually, what I'm about ready to write down right now, please do not write in your notes, okay? Don't write this down, just watch. We're going to get into this later in more detail. So if you don't understand this, don't freak out and get worried, but just listen to me for a second. Again, do not write this down, just watch. Now, in both of these expressions, your exponent is a 3. Here's your exponent, and here's your exponent. However, when you look at both these expressions, probably all of you think that the base is -2, and that's not correct. Now just listen, because there's parentheses around this entire part here, that means the 3 goes to everything. Then your base here would be -2. But over here, because there's no parentheses like that, believe it or not, your base is just a 2. The negative sign is not part of the base. So in other words, if you were to write this out, you would not write a -2 3 times. Did you know that? Make sure you understand that, okay? You would write a 2 3 times, and then when you were all done multiplying them together, this negative sign would be right here, okay? Now, we'll get into that more later, but it's very important you understand that, okay? Over here, in this expression here, you would write the -2 3 times because the base is -2, and you would multiply -2 times -2 times -2. So do you see how it's so important to know what the base is? And we'll talk more about this later, but the main thing I want you to grasp right now is this. This is the base, this is the exponent, and this entire expression is called an exponential expression. Okay? Now let's continue on. You need to know how to read these, so I would really like you to copy this in your notes if you would, please. Okay? I'm going to write fast. Pause the video when you need to. If I had an expression like this, how would I read that? I would say 10 to the first power. You need to know how to say that. If I had something like this, write this down. Again, I'm going to go fast on purpose. Just pause the video, get caught up, and then restart it. You would pronounce this 4 to the second power. That's ditto marks right there. Or you could also say, if you wanted to, 4 squared. So either one of these two expressions is how you would say this over here. Now, if I had something like this, I could say that 5 to the third power, or I could say 5 cubed. So either one of these two expressions means the same thing, and you can use this expression here when your exponent is a 3. Okay? And now the rest of them are all the same. If I had something like this, and you can write this down or just listen, it's up to you. But if I had this, I would say 6 to the fourth power. This would be x to the fifth power. This would be y to the sixth power. This would be 11 to the seventh power, and so on and so on and so forth. Okay? So make sure you really understand how to say these, and also make sure you understand what the base is, the exponent is, and the exponential expression. Okay? All right, let's continue on. Now, let's take this knowledge that we just learned and apply it to some problems. So here we go. Let's work on this problem. You can work ahead or you can watch me. I want you to evaluate x cubed or x to the third power when x equals 5. Now, I want to pause and tell you something you really should get into the habit of doing from now on until all the way through college. Whenever you put a number in, and actually I should not have called that a number. Remember what we call that? We call it a value. And we don't call this a letter, we call it a variable. So anytime you put a value in for a variable, you should always put parentheses. So where the x is, I put a parentheses. Now notice I don't put a 3 inside the parentheses, okay? I'm just putting parentheses where the x is. The 3 would go on the outside. And then where the x is, I'm going to put a 5. Got it? It's really important you get into the habit of doing that. So I have 5 to the third power, or 5 cubed, which means 5 times 5 times 5, which is 125. If I went too fast, back it up and watch it again, okay? Next problem. Let's evaluate a plus b to the second power when a equals 1 and b equals 2. So here's my problem right here. Parentheses with a 2 right here. Now, what did I just teach you? Where that a is, you really should put a little parentheses. You really should. Then bring down your plus sign. Do you see what I'm doing? Everywhere there's a variable, I'm putting a parentheses. Here's a b, so put a little parentheses. Got it? Now where the a is, I'm going to put a 1. And where the b is, I'm going to put a 2. Okay? Now, hopefully you guys know by now you don't want to do anything with this power until you first simplify inside the parentheses. In other words, look back at the last problem. We had one number inside the parentheses that we were taking to the third power. One number. Look at this problem. We've got two numbers. We don't want to do that. We want to simplify this down to one number and then worry about the exponent. So I have 1 plus 2, that's 3. 3 to the what power? Second power. And that means write the 3 twice. So 3 times 3 is 9. Okay? Again, back it up and watch it again if you need to, okay? Make sure you're understanding this. Now, the next problem is very similar. Notice here we have a plus b to the second power. Like this. But now we're going to work on a problem like this. That's a little different, okay? So here we go. I'll be very careful here. Okay, students, I'm back. Sorry about that. I had to cough there for a second. But anyways, let's evaluate this problem right here. Now, I just went into great details to tell you that everywhere there's a variable, be sure and put parentheses. But if you'll notice, we already have the parentheses there for us. In other words, if I get rid of the a, there's already a parentheses right here. So in this case, I'm doing okay. All right. So where the a is, I'm going to put a 1 plus, and then where the b is right here, I'm going to put a 2. And then bring down my squared. Now, guys, do you see the difference between this problem here and this problem here? If you don't, listen to me. If you don't see the difference, listen to me. Listen, I have one exponent with a bunch of numbers underneath it. So I first had to simplify that down to one number. Here, I have two exponents, and notice each exponent only has one number for its base. So we're actually, this is pretty easy. We can go ahead and simplify our exponents. So 1 to the second power is not 2. 1 times 1 is 1. 2 times 2 is 4. Bring down your positive sign, and you get 5. And there's your answer. Okay? Make sure you know how to do this. Your homework tonight is going to be really important because you need to practice these types of problems and really make sure you're not making mistakes, okay? All right, moving on to another problem. Okay, let's work on this one now. Now be very careful, guys. Look, here's your variable. Do you see it? So I have 2, and then what have I taught you to put for the variable? A parentheses. You're seeing now why it's so important to do that. Okay, so here's a 2. I put my 2. Here's my exponent. I put my exponent. Where the x is, I put a parentheses. And now I'm going to pick up 4 because x equals 4 and put it right here. Okay, now this is one of the biggest mistakes that Algebra 1, Algebra 2, and sometimes even pre-calculus students make. They first multiply the 2 times the 4. They have an 8. And then they take 8 to the third power. 8 times 8 times 8, which would be what? 8 times 8 is 64, and 64 times 8 is 512. And that's wrong. Students, that's wrong. You must first do your powers, your exponents, okay? So you bring the 2 down, and now you take 4 to the third power. 4 times 4 times 4. We can do that in our head. 4 times 4 is 16, and 16 times 4 is 64. Now, what are these two numbers doing? Are they adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing? What are these two numbers doing? Well, look back up here. Notice the 2 is right next to the parentheses, correct? They're side by side. So that means they're multiplying. You could actually put a dot right here. So they're multiplying. Multiply them together and you get 128. Okay? Do you see that okay? Now it's so important that you understand what I just did. I'm going to pull that over to the next page and we're going to look at that in a second, okay? Well, if I'm able to. Okay, we'll leave it here for now. Actually, we'll do that. that. There we go. Okay. Now, everybody see what we just did. Notice we had 2 times x to the third power. I put a parentheses where the x was and put my 4 and did my powers first. Now look at this next problem, guys. It looks similar, but it's not. Look, here we did not have a parentheses around the 2 and the x. Do you see that? We did not. Here we do. So please watch carefully what I do. I put my parentheses from right here. Do you see that okay? See my 3 right here? I put a 3. Here's my 2 right here. So I put my 2. And then what do you see next right here? An x. So what have I taught you to put for the variable? A parentheses. Okay? So now where the x is, I'm going to put a 4. Now students, please compare. Watch this. Please compare this to this. My 3 was going directly to the what? To the 4. So I did my power first. But look at this. I've got a big old parentheses here, which means this 3 is going to everything inside the parentheses. So over here, I did not multiply the 2 and the 4 first. Why would I? I have a power and one number for the base. So I did my exponents first like I'm supposed to. But over here, I have a power, and look at my base. I've got 2 numbers here. Do you see that? I mean, I can't take 4 or 2 to the third power. I've got to simplify this first because the 3 is going to everything inside the parentheses here. And I knew that because look at the original problem. The original problem right here has what right here? Parentheses around the 2x. That means the 3 goes to everything inside of here. So 2 times 4 is 8. And now take 8 to the third power, which is 8 times 8 times 8, which would give you 512. Now students, this material is not super easy, but you can handle this. You should see the difference. Here I have a parentheses around the 4, so the 3 goes to just the 4. So you do your power first. But here I've got a parentheses around 2 times 4, so the 3 goes to the entire expression. So I must first multiply these 2 numbers so that I have one number for my base. Over here I had one number for my base, so I could go ahead and do my powers first. Here I have 2 numbers for my base, so I simplified them down to one number, and then once I had one number for my base, I could then evaluate my exponent. Okay, students, let's go ahead and move on. I hope you're getting this. If you got to back it up and watch it again, please feel free to do that. Now, let's kind of go backwards and rewrite expressions by using exponents, okay? Copy this problem in your notes, please. 5 times x times x times x times x times x. Now, let's think about this. I've got a 5, so I'll put a 5 times, I've got an x times x times x times x times x. Well, there's 5 x's. That's the same thing as x to the 5th power. And then, of course, 5 times x, we can just write those side by side. So there we go. 5x to the 5th power. Okay? Do you guys see that okay? We have 1 5 and 5 x's, so we can rewrite it like this. Okay? All right, let's try another one. Now here, we've got everything being multiplied together, okay? So we have 3 8s. 8 times 8. Remember, when you're multiplying something like 2 times 3 times 4, that's the same thing as 4 times 3 times 2 or 2 times 4 times 3. The order doesn't matter as long as everything is being multiplied, okay? So, I have 3 8s, 8 times 8 times 8. I have 2 x's, and I have 1 y. So now since all of these are multiplying, we can write them side by side. And there's your answer. Now I know a lot of you are thinking, well, Mr. Earhart, 8 times 8 times 8 is 512. So I could put this if I wanted to. And you're correct, you could. So which answer is right? Well, it all depends on the directions. If the directions say to write your answer with exponents, then leave it like this. If it says to simplify your final answer, then write it like this. And I'll make sure on tests and quizzes, I'm really clear about that, okay? Okay, let's move on. Lastly, let me quickly show you how to use a calculator when it comes to evaluating exponential expressions, okay? Because sometimes we'll have something like this. 13 to the 5th power. And that's going to take a long time to take 13 times 13 times 13 times 13 times 13. So, if you have a TI graphing calculator, which you do not need to have one, but if you do, look on here's the screen and here's the rest of the calculator here. In this column right here, you've got your plus, you've got your enter button and your plus button and your minus and your times and your divide. Then right above it, there should be a button right here that has an arrow like this. Okay? That's the button you want to use. Now, some of you that do not have a graphing calculator, your button might look like this. X to the y. But try to find your exponential button. And if you can't, if you have to email me, then email me and I will help you find it, okay? But anyways, for a graphing calculator, you would first type in 13. That's your base. Then push this button right here, and this should pop up, and then hit 5, and then hit enter, okay? Now, if you do that correctly, you will get 371,293. Now, on the newer TIs, there won't be an arrow here. You'll push 13, then you'll hit your arrow button, and a little box will appear here. And then you hit 5, and a little 5 will go in here, and then hit enter, okay? Now, if you have a button like this, you first type in 13, then hit this button here, and then hit 5, and then hit enter, and this should pop up, okay? So, that's a quick way for you to know how to use your calculators with exponents. And by the way, you need to know how to do that. I will give you some on a test where you're not allowed to use a calculator, and I will give you some where you have to use a calculator. Okay? So make sure you understand that. All right? I hope this video has been a help. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to call or email.